All right, let's keep going with a look at the Takara version of Transformers Siege Nemesis Prime. I did, for a brief time, have the Netflix version, which I'll pop up a side-by-side right now so you can see what I'm talking about. I had the Netflix version of Nemesis Prime, and it's good. It's a cool figure, but I just really preferred the Takara deco because its colors are more in line with what I wanted from a Nemesis Prime. It's got actual like dark black plastic rather than dark gray plastic like the Netflix version. It's got more teal, more red. So this is the version that I wanted to get. And because of time, the Netflix version actually now sells for close to what this one sells for. So I basically just exchanged them. I sold off the Netflix one for about what I paid for this one, which, yes, I overpaid, but so did the person who bought the Netflix Nemesis. And now I don't have a trailer I don't want. So yay. The only thing that this guy does come with is his gun and a sword, which you can see right here. And it's the typical Siege Prime Ion Blaster, which is fine for what it is. It's fine, yeah. We'll see that more in robot mode. And the sword is really nice. The thing that bugs me about the sword, though, is it's this translucent pink plastic, and then the grip is painted in this glossy black. The reason that bothers me is because this is the thing that's supposed to peg into stuff and go into his hand. Meaning the painted bit is the thing that's going to be rubbing up against plastic when you peg it in place or put it in his hand. So after doing this video, this sword is going to be going into storage because I just don't want to deal with the inevitable paint rub, paint chipping, whatever you want to call it. And it really bums me out that they did this. I feel like, even at retail, this thing was not that cheap compared to a regular Voyager class figure. So I feel like for the added cost, maybe they could have had this be a separate piece or molded this in black and then painted this like pink or something. I don't know. I just feel like this sucks. Having this painted sucks. But outside of that, we do have the truck, which is the standard Siege Optimus Prime truck, and it is fine for what it is. It's basically just a G1 truck with extra molded detail, greebly bits, and this little eyebrow thing up here. This never particularly bothered me, but it's, I'm still kind of like, why do we always have to do G1? But granted, I think this was around the time when I hadn't quite, this came out around the time I wasn't entirely sick of the G1 retreading over and over again, so there is that. But it looks good for what it is. There's some nice color picked out here. I really like they did the metallic teal on the rims for all of the wheels, including the ones that are underneath this little panel here. The thing that does bum me out, though, is you've got these red windows, which are fine, but then when you go around to the side, this bit is like painted in this pink color, and then it moves on into teal. Why did they do that? Why not keep that pinkish red color going to the rest of what is obviously the side windows? I just don't. So yeah, I'm eventually hoping to get Reaper labels to do all these windows so that they're cohesive going all the way around, because this is just. Why? Also, it's kind of a bummer that they've got the line going along here in teal, but then it just stops. It doesn't continue around. That is one of a handful of things that the Netflix version did better. I liked the placement of the colors for the Netflix version better than this one, but I like the colors of this one better, which is why, in my mind, upgraded to this one. But the Netflix version, it keeps that stripe going around the side. The windows, they're still weird, but they blend in color-wise a little bit better. There's silver trim painted around the front windows for the Netflix version, whereas this one, as you can see, does not have that. So yeah, it could have been better, but it's fine for what it is, and it's still a cool figure. For me, primarily, it's this really nice, dark, glossy plastic that makes this figure over the Netflix version. But yeah, it's an Optimus Prime truck, and it does the thing. As many people have pointed out, you can partially de-transform the wheels in the front and in the back and give him like a little Cybertronian hover truck mode, which is silly, and I never intend to use it as an option, but I do appreciate the fact that it's there. I cannot get mad at options being baked into a figure design, especially if it doesn't interrupt anything. Like, this is just using transformation joints to allow you to do a little bit more with the vehicle mode. So yeah, I can't really be mad at that. Now, for size comparisons, gotta reach around a lot of other stuff for later, but here we've got Siege Nemesis Prime. It's the Siege Optimus Prime mold, so anyone familiar with the figure knows exactly what to expect, but it's that figure, so it's that size. So there we've got Artfire, Rotor Storm, Ova Prime, and there we go. And Samus. And then for vehicle mode comparison, there is Burnout for a, I guess, Voyager versus Deluxe comparison. Just in case anyone's not familiar with this figure or needed a reminder. So that is how they all work together size-wise. So many things off camera that I have to go over with in the robot mode. But we're not at the robot mode yet, so I can't bring them out just yet. And finally, before we move on, here we go. Here is Siege Nemesis Prime, or the Siege Optimus Prime mold with the duck tank. Alright, time for transformation. But before we do the transformation, a couple of quick channel things. If you like this video or any of the other videos that I've done, or if you like that I'm doing NemeSeptember again, you can always support the channel with Patreon. There is a link in the description down below. I only have a single $1 tier. That $1 tier, as I said, supports the channel, and it gets you early access to new videos. So, for example, patrons are actually, they got a little bit of a head start on NemeSeptember. So there is that. If you'd rather support the channel non-monetarily, you can always do the typical YouTube stuff of like comment, subscribe, share, etc. Also, there is a different link in the description for a Discord server for Show Z, which is an overseas website I've done a lot of purchasing for over the years for things like Masterpiece, Knockoff, and third-party figures. They're great. Customer service is great. Shipping times are pretty good. Turnaround or pricing is really nice. And yeah, if you use the Discord link down below to join their Discord, I get a little bit of store credit that I can put towards buying more stuff from them. So there is that. Now, with all that out of the way, let's transform this figure, which I'm sure most of the people watching this are already familiar with the transformation, but I'm going to go over it anyway. So first thing I'm going to do is pop these little panels off of the sides, and those come out a little bit. I'm going to pull down these wheels, pull them down there because we need to free these bits up. Then we can swing these bits out. They tab in right there. Now I'm going to pull up these little doors on the sides here. There's like a little tab you can kind of get a nail under and pull up. And then split open the front windows so that this entire assembly can come up and out of the way. And we'll take care of this assembly now while we're here. So you want to fold this gray piece down all the way in, fold these panels all the way in, fold this all the way in, and now this is all compacted and out of the way. So with all of that done, I'm going to bring the legs down just a bit to get them out of the way, and we'll fold down this panel here. And again, this is mostly to get things out of the way for the sake of clearance, but that out. And now with that out of the way, we can bring out the arms, very much Optimus Prime style, or in this case, Nemesis Prime style, and we'll deal with the arms later. I'm going to bring the wheels up, bring this assembly up, and that will peg in to the, I guess it doesn't really peg in. Well, that settles in here and kind of completes the waist assembly. Now we can split the legs, and the wheels that were push down for the hover mode. Flip those all the way around 180 degrees, and bring down this panel. And there's a secondary panel inside that flips around. So when you flip this around, this will peg in right in there, and that closes up the leg, which is really cool. And same deal on this side. Flip the wheels around, bring this panel down, and bring this panel out. Swing that in, and peg it into there. There, we've got that. Going to rotate the leg around at the knee, because there is a thigh swivel, but you want to use the swivel that's just above the knee. So rotate that around, like so. Then these bits here can fold in and peg into place to clean up the knee section, and then fold out the toes. And that is it for the legs. There we go. Now for the arms, going to fold this panel down all the way, swing this panel around, and there is a tab right here that this will notch into. It's not like a super solid connection, you can still bump it out of place, but it kind of keeps it out of the way. And same deal here, fold that down, swing that around, and there we have that. While we're doing this, we can rotate this whole assembly 180 degrees, but we want to keep that up. Or actually, no, we don't need to keep that up. We can bring that in, and there are these little slots right next to the grill. You can barely see them that tab in over these little tabs here. So bring that in and tab that in. Now this is the only disappointing part. I wish you could do this first and do the head last, but you got to do the head. So I'm going to flip up the head, as is obviously in there. And why are you not flipping up? Come on, don't. Are you trying to embarrass me in front of guests? There we go. So flip up the head, close up the chest, and then you can bring that down just to complete that. Like, it's not super necessary, but it closes up that gap a little bit. And now the wheels can hinge up and in to the torso. And you want to do that last, because the head will not fit in here with those wheels in place, because you can kind of see those hinges now stick in slightly, and that just does not give you the room you need for the head. So got to do the hinges last, or you got to do the hinges after the head going into robot mode, and you've got to do the hinges before tucking the head away going into truck mode. But anyway, with all of that done, there we have Takara's version of Siege Nemesis Prime, and this is a really, really nice figure. Like, I really like this figure. I think the Earthrise figure is extremely good, but in all honesty, I prefer the Siege version. That may be sacrilegious to some, I'm sorry, but like, yes, the Earthrise version does more with the torso, but like, the torso seems kind of squished. I think the torso proportions on the Siege mold are better, and this doesn't bother me at all. Yes, I know, like, this is a little bit not as clean as the Earthrise mode, because you got the flaps here and this backpack, but like, the flaps almost feel like an homage to the Classics mold, as well as they don't really get in the way. They just look a little bit unsightly from the side, but at the same time, the way they kind of taper towards the fist, it almost works in a way. Makes it look like he's got some really weirdly big gauntlets on rather than some kind of horrible unsightly kibble. The backpack cleans up and folds up and tucks in really nicely. So like, yeah, it's there, but it's not what I would call terrible. And the legs, I really like the leg transformation. I like that you've got that extra swivel just above the knee in addition to the thigh swivel. And I like the fact that these wheels flip around 180 degrees, so they like kind of end up on the outside of the leg, but they tuck in and make it look transformed. And these bits come in and clean everything up around the back. Whereas the Earthrise figure, it just, you end up with this bit on the outside of the truck mode, which I don't like. The legs are just, you just split them apart. You don't do anything with the legs. You split them apart and you fold out the toes. I just like the transformation of this figure more. I like this figure more, ultimately, than the Earthrise version. And again, I'm sorry, it's not to say that I think the Earthrise mold is bad. I like it. If they made a Nemesis Prime version of it, I would probably get it. And I've been contemplating getting the Shattered Glass version if I could find one for a not absurd price. But I just think as a toy, as a Transformers toy that transforms, this one works for me better than Earthrise. And so I'm glad that this one got a Nemesis Prime figure. I'm still hoping that they do a Nemesis Earthrise figure, but they probably won't at this point. But I could be wrong. I'd love to be wrong. Anyway, this looks really good. It's still got that similar problem to the Netflix version when compared to the Netflix version, which is that just some of the details that you got with the Netflix version aren't here with this one. Like I said, like the silver trim around the windows I thought was really nice. Now, what's interesting was I thought this guy really needed the gray biceps because it just kind of it throws off the design balance a little bit in my mind, where it's like you've got the grayish waist section and thighs and that's it, whereas the Netflix one had like, you know, the gray waist and thighs and gray biceps, and I thought that seemed a little bit more cohesive in terms of like color placement. But then looking at my shelf full of Nemesis Primes, which at this point I'm up to 24, I have 24 Nemesis Primes. I'm not doing a video on all of them this month because I've done videos on several of them in the past. I'm not rehashing videos. But yeah, I've got 24 Nemesis Primes, and going back and looking at the shelf, this is actually a common color layout for Nemesis Prime, where the biceps are actually black with the rest of the arms and the shoulders. So this is actually more accurate to the standard, or what has become the norm for Nemesis Prime decoration layout, like color layouts. So I guess I just prefer having the gray in the biceps to kind of break that up a little bit more, but it still works. Though, again, like, I really like the colors. As I said in the truck mode, the glossy black is great. Love it. Love the metallic teal. The red windows are nice, though they're a bit dark. But a lot of detail is not really picked out in colors at all with this guy. Like, you've got the shin vents and the metallic blue on the toes, which is great, but then like the knees and thighs are completely devoid of any paint or any color difference whatsoever. You've got the metallic turquoise in the waist, the silver grill, and the metallic turquoise for the lines around here. And this is all like the faux stuff that's not actually visible in the truck mode. And that's fine, though it is weird that like the grill here has this translucent turquoise over it, which I'm not super into. And here it's all silver, so it doesn't really match up, but whatever. But the point is, a lot of the color here, it's like, it's here, but you get nothing in the arms and nothing extra in the legs. And that's just a little bit disappointing to me. I feel like if they had done, like if they could have just added maybe a little bit of that turquoise to the arms, like little arrow there, or the lines, or maybe bring in some red or even silver, that would have really helped. And again, like the red for the windows is just a little bit dull compared to this black plastic around it. I think like if they had done the silver trim like the Netflix version does, that would help to separate this out a little bit more, but they didn't. But again, like it's fine. I do intend to get repro labels for this guy, and I don't think this is bad. I don't regret getting this guy and changing up for the Netflix version. It's just, you know, actually taking a minute to look at him outside of being super excited for the much darker shades and the metallic teals and all that. He is kind of missing some stuff in my mind. But anyway, yeah, then also have the metallic turquoise for the lights that are retained from the truck mode, because there's that at least. And of course the tiny smokestacks along the sides, which the short smokestacks, really, I don't care. I know they bother other people. I am not one of those people. Now as for the head, it's the Siege Optimus Prime head, but in Nemesis colors, and it works really well. And thankfully they did not do that nonsense that the Earthrise Prime figure did, where they only painted the mouth plate and not the section of the face behind the mouth plate. That really bugged me for the Earthrise figure for some reason. But yeah, you've got the silver face and mouth plate with the red eyes, and then the nice metallic turquoise for the little head thingy. And they probably could have added a little bit more paint, like around the little ear vent circular bits there or the little side vents there, but they really didn't need to. It would have been nice, especially for the premium price tag that this guy went for, but it's fine. It looks good. And as for the articulation, it is the Siege Optimus Prime mold, so it's got that exact same articulation. Heads on a ball joint, so you get a little bit of side to side, some up and down. You can look up a little further if you pull that panel up, but it's negligible. And then, of course, can go 360 degrees. Shoulders can go 360, can go out, if you get the smokestacks out of the way, can go out to pretty much 90. Got a bicep swivel. There is a slightly over 90 degree bend at the elbow. The wrists do rotate, which is cool. You do get a waist swivel despite this whole assembly thing moving around for the transformation like that, so that's cool. The hips can go forward that far, can go back that far, can go out that far. You get a thigh rotation, which is a bit hampered as the thighs are in. The further out you go, the more of a rotation you can get. But the thing that's nice about that is even if even if that's not enough thigh rotation for you, you get that rotation just above the knee, so you can use that as well. And because the rotation is above the knee, which is, and like I've said this before, but if you're going to have knee rotation, put it above the knee, never below the knee. Because if you put it below the knee, then all you get is the shin can spin. That doesn't accomplish anything. If it's above the knee, you can still do that. So you get a much wider dynamic range of motion. But yeah, you've got the above the knee swivel, and the knee can actually bend really far. So yeah, that is cool. And then you get ankle tilt, and you can kind of play around with the heels and toes. They can bend in. They can't bend up, but that's fine. And like bending the heels down a little bit is actually kind of nice because you can do that to angle them forward a bit and then angle the hips back a bit and do that kind of like slightly arched forward or drastically arched forward pose, which, I don't know. I enjoy that kind of thing. So yeah, really nicely posable, even though it's an older figure at this point, which, jeez, that's depressing to say. Now, for the accessories, you have the Ion Blaster, which you can peg into his back if you want to store it up or down. You can peg it into the shoulders, you can peg it into the arms, or you can peg it into his fist because it is a gun, so have him use the gun. Same deal with the sword. You can peg it into the back for storage, peg it into the shoulder, peg it into the forearm, peg it into the leg if you want, really, or put it in his hand. And I don't want to push it in all the way because, again, I don't want to risk stripping the paint, but there's how that looks. But I actually have a little bit of a surprise for you all because these are not how I display my Nemesis Prime. I actually have a couple of other accessories that I use with him. And those accessories are some very specific Battle Masters. Here we have Siege Slitherfang, who is a Cobra in this really nice dark dark purple plastic with this kind of grayish paint in a few places. This does clip down right in here, but I don't like doing that because it's hard to unclip it, so I just do that because I feel like you can't really notice the difference unless you're looking for it. Yeah, it's a convincing little Cobra for what it is. You've got a swivel right there, you've got a hinge there, and a hinge there for like the tail tip. So you can get some pretty decent expressions out of this little guy. And he's got his little angry red Cobra eyes. And this guy, if you're not familiar with him, turns into a ramp, as a lot of these things tended to do. But in addition to that, if you straighten everything out, swing this around, these will tab into these little tabs here. And then swing this down, it can become a shield. And this is one of the things I like to do with this Nemesis. So I just plug this into the forearm, and then take that back together. And now he has a pretty cool shield. And the dark purple and gray, I think, work well with a Nemesis color scheme. And we also have the Airstrike Patrol Battle Masters, and these guys are neat. I got them on a pseudo whim a while back, actually, for like an Earthrise Skywarp, I believe. I don't have that Skywarp anymore, but got the Airstrike Patrol, and they're still a lot of fun. We've got, I believe this one is Stormcloud, and this one is Visper. The original Airstrike Patrol figure used to be called Whisper. He is now called Visper. I don't know, but these are them, and they're cool. And I like the color swap that they did with them, where Stormcloud has the black body and purple extremities, and Visper has the purple body and black extremities. I like that kind of shared color palette, but color placement swap that they've got going on here. And starting with Stormcloud, he is pretty simple in his design, but some nice molding. That really nice toxic green face stands out against the black very well, and I also like these little painted silver bits above the shoulders. Could do with a little bit more detailing, but I've been kind of keeping my eye on the Reaper label set for these guys. I think I might get that at some point in the future. And also he has these little like blaster hands, which they are blast effect compatible, but they're painted, so I don't want to put blast effects on them for fear of stripping off the paint. But yeah, neat little guy. I don't believe the head is movable, and if it is, it's so... yeah, it doesn't seem to be posable. So the head is a solid piece, but the shoulders are on ball joints, so you can go in and out and rotate around. You've got 90-degree elbows in either direction. You don't get a bicep rotation, but because the shoulders are ball joints, you can still kind of get what amounts to a bicep rotation to a degree. The hips are on ball joints, so you can go forward that far and back to there and out to there, and you get a little bit of rotation because of the ball joints. And then you've got slightly under 90-degree knees. So Stormcloud is pretty posable. And Visper is a similar deal where he's pretty much just got paint in a couple of places, like the sides of the waist and the face, but he also has some on the shins. Again, some nice detailing. I just wish there was a little bit more color to him, but hey, Reaper labels. Though he does have a little bit of color visible on the outside, or on the underside of the wings. Stormcloud did not have that. So yeah, Visper's cool. It doesn't really do much. It actually has less articulation than Stormcloud. The head moves technically, like you can look up, but that's more for transformation, and it really looks awkward if you do something like that. Though I guess you could turn him into like a Red Wing style drone if you wanted to do that. Got ball jointed shoulders, so you get that sort of pseudo bicep rotation. You get the all the way around and out, and that's it for the arms. He does not have elbows. And the hips are on ball joints, so similar to Stormcloud, you get the forward, you get the back, you get the out, and you get the pseudo rotation. You get very stiff, but over 90 degrees of bend at the knees. And then the toes actually can point, for whatever good that does. So I guess he has slightly better articulation in some regards and worse articulation in others. Now to transform Visper, going to point the toes and then hinge down this vehicle backpack and bring the toes back up, and these little bits will kind of nestle in here. So get that in place. Going to bring the arms down, bring the wings down, and the wings will peg into these tabs on the backs of the forearms, and then flip up the head to hide the face, basically. And that is it. That is it for Visper. There is Visper's jet mode. We'll look at that more in a second. Stormcloud's transformation is a bit more involved. You want to bring the arms up and bend the elbows back, straighten out the wings, and now with the wings straightened out, you want to bring these arms back in so that these they kind of click into place, but basically the arms act as like little thrusters or something. They line up in the wings like that, which is actually kind of cool. Then for the legs, you want to bring them out and rotate them around, and bend the knees, and the legs, or feet rather, will tab into these little tabs on the wings, which is not the best connection, but it gets the job done. And, oh wait, yeah, it's tabbing into the wings, but also there is a tab on the foot that tabs into the arm. Forgot about that bit. And then hinge the vehicle mode cockpit forward to complete the jet mode. And Stormcloud's jet mode it's neat. I like the little extra fins on the front. There's some nice detailing, like the black in the nose and the silver in the cockpit, and you get a little bit of extra paint along here too. And also a little bit of black and silver on the tips of the wings, which is nice. This is a lot of blank space up here, but again, like Revo labels could probably fix that. But it's an overall nice shape. Color layout's pretty decent, though the solid massive black in the center is a bit eh. But I like it. It looks decent, and it's got some nice added bits of paint detail in a few key places, though underneath it's very obviously a folded up robot, but it's a tiny Battlemaster, you know, what do you want? Visper is, I think, the cooler of the two jet modes. It's just this really nice, sleek, and angular, almost arrow-shaped jet. Reminds me, I know it's not the same, it is nowhere near the same in terms of design of an SR-71, but it kind of evokes that feeling for me. I know it does not look a thing like an SR-71, I'm just saying it's got that similar vibe. And I also really like the red accents on the black. Those stand out really nicely, and because this is mostly one color with just a tiny bit of purple towards the back and a few key areas from hinges and stuff, I feel like this, even though he doesn't have all of the tiny details of Stormcloud, I think Visper's jet mode looks more cohesive because it's all one color with these little picked out accents on like the tail fins and the wings and stuff, even though it's like technically less paint. So yeah, neat jet mode. But the reason I use these guys as an accessory for Nemesis Prime is because they have a combined weapon mode, because they're Siege Battlemasters. So what you want to do is, if you don't have this flipped out, because you don't technically have to, you could leave the head flipped in, which cleans up the back of the jet mode a little bit. Then you've got complete robot just hanging out there. But anyway, if you haven't flipped the head back, flip the head back so you've got that peg. And now that peg will peg into the back of Stormcloud, and these little notches in the wings, these little tips of the wings on Visper will kind of plug in. So line all that up, plug it all together, and now you've got this weird thing happening. And then all you have to do from here is take Stormcloud's cockpit section and hinge that up like you were going into robot mode, and that reveals this little peg here, which turns this into a sword. And that can go into Nemesis Prime's hand as sword. And there we go. This is how I like to have my Nemesis Prime. And yes, I know this isn't the best looking sword, but I still think it's pretty neat. It's a sword made out of two jets. I don't know, I think it's cool. It's definitely a weird shape, but it works. And I think for a Voyager, it's fine. Like for a leader-sized figure, not class figure, leader-sized figure, I feel like it might look a little tiny, but on this guy, I think it looks good. So yeah, that is how I've got this particular Nemesis Prime set up on the shelf. Now, in terms of size, let's wrap this up. Here is Artfire, and bring in Rotor Storm, and Ova Prime. Whoop. Stay up. And Burnout, and Samus. So there is that lineup, and granted, I have his heels back a little bit, which makes him stand up a little bit taller, but he is noticeably taller than Artfire. So I think that's interesting how between basically Siege and what was Arcfire's Generation Selects? So he was based off of Kingdom Grapple, I think. Or was it Earthrise? Earthrise, right. So between Siege and Earthrise, it's just an interesting difference in terms of height, I guess. I don't know. Anyway, let's get these out of here. And yeah, I mean, I guess it also is, it's not so much a difference in size of the Voyagers, because at this point, the height of a Voyager and Deluxe and all that really depends on the character rather than the class. But it's just interesting. One other comparison that I can make currently is with Holiday Prime, who we looked at not too terribly long ago, I don't think. And yeah, here they are together. They're more or less the same height. Granted, this is a leader class figure, but that's because it comes with a bunch of extra stuff. The figure itself is more like average-ish Voyager height. But here's how the two of them look side by side, so you can get an idea. And I guess in a way, this is sort of your unofficial comparison to see how the Siege Prime mold stacks up against the Volvo mold, because this is the same as the Volvo Prime that came out very recently, just in holiday colors. And for me, because I like things that are weird and goofy, this is the version for me. The Volvo one looks cool, but I like this one because it looks interesting. Anyway, last, but certainly not least, here he is with everyone's favorite, the Duck Tank. And that does it for Takara's rendition of Siege Nemesis Prime. As I said, it's nice. I really like the darker blacks and the metallic turquoise and the silvers and stuff. Like, there's just a better contrast with the colors because of the colors that they used for this one. The mold itself is always great. You can never go wrong with this mold, as far as I'm concerned. And personally, I really prefer the sword and shield combo versus the blaster and sword with paint that's likely to chip off combo. So this makes me happy. I just wish there was a little bit more coloration in a few key areas for the robot mode and the truck mode, and also the truck mode windows with that whole like turquoise, like red to turquoise change in the color. It's weird, but the colors in this one, like as I've said many times, I prefer the colors in this over the Netflix version, but I prefer the color distribution in the Netflix version over this. I kind of wish there was a way to have the color distribution of the Netflix version on this guy. But because the Netflix version uses a really dark gray plastic rather than a glossy black plastic, you can't really mix and match parts. It would look really weird. That was disappointing. But with all of that said and done, I've definitely gone on long enough. That has been Takara's Netflix Nemesis Prime. What do you all think of this guy, or the either Nemesis Prime version, really, whether this or the Netflix version, or the Siege Prime mold in general? Because I will stand by the fact that it's still a great mold. Whatever your thoughts, feel free to chime in down below. I always enjoy hearing from you all. Thank you, everybody, for watching. And our next video, we're going to start delving into, we've kind of done it a little bit here, but we're going to start delving into a handful of the Nemesis Primes that I have that are, let's say, a little bit less common, a little bit harder to get a hold of, and aren't necessarily Nemesis Primes.